All right, everyone, welcome to Laser Focus from Foggy to Fierce. I am super excited to teach all of you some juicy things today. We'll wait a couple minutes to get some ladies on here, and then we'll get started. As you come into the room, you can put in the chat that you're here, say hi, let me know where you're tuning in from. I would love to know. Let me know how your holiday week is going. Things can get a little intense as we get closer to the holiday. So let me know how you're doing out there. All right, we've got some ladies coming in. So as you come in today, let me know where you are coming in from. Margot from New York City, amazing. I'm assuming it's a pretty chilly for you today. From San Diego, amazing. I'm assuming it's maybe not so chilly. Although for us Californians, it gets to like 60 degrees and we think it's cold, right? I am in the Bay Area in California. I live in Oakland, California. It's a beautiful sunny day today. A little chilly, but probably in the low 60s, so can't complain. And it's been a really great week. So we're going to dive in here shortly. And my invitation to you ladies is to stay engaged throughout this webinar. So come into the chat, answer the questions, any questions that you have throughout. I will allow time for Q&A at the end. So there will be a specific time for you to ask questions. And I'm going to be inviting you to really stay engaged throughout the entire masterclass, because that's going to make it more exciting. Some of the things that you say might inspire other ladies who are on here. So that is my invitation for this masterclass. And let's go ahead and dive in. Margot, 31 degrees here now. Wow, that is cold. That is cold. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in and get started. All right, ladies. So welcome to Laser Focus from Foggy to Fierce. I'm really excited to be with you all today. I have some good things that we're going to go through today. Have a notepad, have your pen, have your phone nearby, but have it turned over so it's not pinging you, because I'm actually going to go through some things with the phone. So just turn it over so you don't see the notifications that are coming through as you're going through this. It's a practice of really staying present, which is such a struggle, which is why we're having this masterclass, right? And why I'm going to be teaching you all of these things, because it seems like lately our attention is just being pulled left and right and all over the place. So let's go ahead and dive into where we're headed and where we are going. So first of all, welcome. I'm so happy to have you ladies here. My name is Cassandra. I'm the owner of Revive and Thrive Women, which is a company that I run. I help coach women out of burnout. I help coach women to prevent burnout and really be their best self moving forward into their career. I was in the corporate space for many years, and I'll get into that a little bit later. And I experienced pretty severe burnout. It was not pretty. I hit a burnout black hole, which is what I like to call it. And it really impacted every area of my life, my relationships, my family, my relationship with my hubby, my relationship with my friends, my relationship with myself. And so as I recovered from that burnout and continued to work in corporate, I knew that one day I was going to make it my mission to help other women prevent and recover from burnout. So I left my corporate job this year in March. I was the vice president of a company called Grow Team. And I started Revive and Thrive Women. And now I work with women and help them to prevent burnout and really step into their true power. And it is the best thing ever. It just lights me up every day. I really believe in a world where there is no longer burnout amongst women, which is a huge mission to have, because we're at a point right now where about 45% of female office workers feel burnt out. So I know we've got a long road ahead, and it's so important and totally possible. So that's really my mission. And what gets me excited every single day is just knowing that there is a future where women are no longer burnt out. We are in our power. We are passing down a legacy of peace. And that really excites me to see that happen in my clients and see that happen in the groups of ladies that I train. So Hello again. If you're coming in, make sure to put in the chat your name, where you're from, where you're coming from, so I can stay engaged with you. I'm going to go through a little bit of my background so you know a little bit more about me, and then we're going to dive into the training. So a little bit about me and my background. I graduated from Sacramento State. I'm from the Sacramento area, so I grew up in Roseville, California. I was the first in my family to go to college, first in my family to graduate from college. So that was a huge honor on my part. And I graduated with a degree in environmental science, which is related to nothing that I do now. And I think so many of us can relate to that. I have such a love for nature and such a love for the environment. And so that thread has been pulled through. And through my career, I ended up going more business marketing route. And now I'm running my own business. So graduated college, went through that. And then my fourth year in college, final year, I was in an internship called College Works Painting. And that was an internship where you learned how to run your own business. And in that internship, I realized that I had quite the entrepreneurial spirit. My dad owned restaurants growing up, so I got to witness him pursue his entrepreneurial passions. He's a chef turned business owner. And through this internship, I realized that I really loved creating something of my own. I ended up being one of the top interns in California in that program and came back to work with that company for a couple years and was a regional manager. So I had a group of students that I led through the program for a couple years, was also one of the top DMs. And so after that, I was asked to become a general manager. And I actually turned that opportunity down to start a business called Grow Team with one of the presidents of College Works. They left and took me with them. And we started Grow Team, which was a digital marketing company. So Grow Team was my first corporate job. It was like my first big girl job. I was so excited. I was the third employee, so it was a startup at the time. And I really just hit the ground running. I started out at that position doing the groundwork of making phone calls. So sales calls, which means I was in an office cubicle making like 200 calls a day. If any of you on this webinar have experience in sales and have done an SDR role or a cold calling role or like a door knocking role, then you know the grit that comes with that. If you have, you can put it in the chat. I'd love to know. So that was my first intro into corporate. And from there, I really had my sights set on just climbing the corporate ladder. I wanted to get to the very top position that I could get to over the next few years. And so that's where I put my intention in. I worked really hard and I continued to get promoted through that time. Now, I was a director of operations when I experienced severe burnout. And that happened because this pursuit to get to the top had really it really consumed me. I was a workaholic. I was working super late. I was dedicating no time to myself and my friends and my family. Everything was about putting in as much work as I could so that I could get to this level. And once I get to that level, I can take a rest. I'll be happy. Everything will be perfect. And in doing so, I hit pretty bad burnout rock bottom, like I mentioned. And what that looked like for me was just pure exhaustion. I would dread going to work. I started to have health issues. I started to have problems in my body. And like I said in the beginning, it really impacted every single part of my life. It wasn't just my work life that suffered. It was really everything. And so I realized at that time that I needed to get some help. I wasn't getting promoted like I wanted to because I wasn't showing up to work like I wanted to. And so I ended up investing in a few trainings that I'll tell you about. And those trainings helped me to realize that I was running in a way that was not sustainable, that I needed to really take a step back and approach work in a much different way, in a way that was clear and grounded and calm. And so I did training after training after training and was able to get out of that burnout black hole. And then as I got out of the burnout black hole, I started to get promoted again because I started to show up to work in such a powerful way. And so our company, Grow Team, was acquired in 2018 by a much larger company. And at that point, I was promoted to the vice president of the company. And that role came with a lot of leadership. And I loved it. I loved that role. I loved being there for my team. And because I had all of these tools that I learned in my trainings, I didn't go down the burnout black hole again. And so I was in that role for many years, and I just stepped away from that role in March to start my own company, which is called Revive and Thrive Women. And here at Revive and Thrive Women, we are very passionate about helping women prevent and get recovery from burnout, because I personally know how it can impact every area of your life. And work stress can really consume everything. And so now I work with women through numerous programs and one-on-one mentorship to help them get out of burnout. So that's my story. That's a little bit about me. And as I mentioned, as I was in this burnout rock bottom, which is like the period of time that I was just like not doing so well, I pursued numerous different trainings. And so for 4 to 5 years, I was going through all of these different trainings. I went through a yoga school. So I did a 200-hour training, a 300-hour training. I did an ambassador program. I kept going and I kept growing, and I kept learning how to really tap into my own body to create calm. I had a very disconnected relationship to my body when I entered into the school. Again, I was burnt out. I was stressed out. I was basically living from the neck up. I had all of this like mental stimulation from work going on. And like, I didn't even remember that, like, oh, wow, I have a body. If any of you can relate to that, let me know. Sometimes we get so consumed in our job that we forget that we're a whole mind body. We're not just the mind, it's both, right? So I went through these trainings to really turn in and really pursue tools that I knew were going to help me regulate my nervous system. Because I, again, had experienced burnout and I knew how that was a body-based problem. I wanted to learn body-based tools as a way to help myself recover. From that point, I taught women's group programs that included yoga. And then the last picture here you can see is my little baby Angel. I became a mom in 2021. And one of my favorite things to do with her as I was on maternity leave was just completely practice yoga with her, as you can see in that photo. So that's a little bit about my background and my foundation and where I've come from. And so today I'm really looking forward to teaching you a lot of the things that I learned through the last many years. When I was a VP in corporate, it was definitely a very stressful job. I was in charge of $12 million of revenue, and I was in charge of a large team. I was also the only female on leadership, and I was the youngest. So that came with its own like imposter syndrome, all the things that I really had to work through. And so staying focused and making sure that I'm present of mind is something that I've really, really tuned, and I'm looking forward to sharing some of these things with you. So where we are headed today, I want to talk about what is taking our focus away. So you're here because you know that your focus is being challenged, right? You go into the workday, your phone is going off, things at home are happening. If you're working from home, there's like 5 million distractions, which I totally understand because I work from home and I have a little child. So we're going to talk about the current focus crisis and what that looks like. I'm also going to talk about protecting your power and how to set boundaries at work. How many of you have ever experienced interruptions at work that you wish weren't happening, but you don't really feel like you can stop them? So maybe your boss is coming into your office, or if you're working from home, you're getting Slack messages every 5 minutes. You're attending meetings that could have been emails. And at the end of the day, you feel like you just didn't get any focused work done because of all these interruptions. And then what that leads to is like burning the midnight oil, opening your laptop back up and like going to work after hours. I'm going to slide over the chat and see if any of you can relate to this. So let me know if that resonates. Let me know if you're like, yeah, that's me. So I'm going to teach you how to say no. And I'm going to teach you how to feel confident saying no, because we really need to have our no's in righteous places and our yeses in righteous places. And I'm going to teach you how to use discernment to choose where to put your yeses and your no's. So we're going to take time to do that. Okay. Notification strategy. So I am going to teach you a very simple thing that you can do on your phone to help with the notifications that you're getting. So the average person gets 43 notifications per day. And if you're working from your phone, which most of us are, that number is going to be closer to 150. So it's a thing, right? How many of you feel like you're getting pinged by your phone all the time? And especially if we're working from our phone, we feel like we can't really have boundaries because we need to see the emails that come through or the Slack messages that come through. And so we have this phone like glued to us at all times, but it's also like just distracting, right? So I'm going to teach you a very simple thing that you can do to bring the power back into your hands so that you get to decide when you want to have notifications going on and then bringing awareness around that as well. So I'm really excited for that exercise. We're going to get into that. I'm also going to teach you a nervous system hack. So I'm going to teach you how to lower your anxiety when you feel overwhelmed by all the to-dos, because I know how overwhelming that can be. I know that when you're at work and you've got a million things going on, you have like, where am I going to put my attention to? I don't even know. So you try and do all of it, and then that doesn't really work out so well typically. So I'm going to teach you how to bring your body into a state of calm so that you can make really, really clear choices on where you want to put your attention to. So that's where we're headed today, and I am super excited. Yes, Bana, it is definitely important to be taking care of yourself physically, because again, burnout is a body-based problem. We don't really think of that, but when you're burnt out, what do you feel? Probably tense in your body. You've got headaches, your jaw hurts, like the physical symptoms that happen are nervous system related. And so if we want to be recovering from stress and burnout, we need to approach it in a body-based way, which I don't see a lot of people talking about that. That is something that is unique to me. And I'm I talk a lot about that, as you'll know if you follow me on all the socials. So, speaking of socials, ways to stay connected to me. So I am on Instagram. I'm on TikTok at Thrive with Cass is my handle. If you're not following me, you can go follow. I also have a women's Facebook group, which is a leadership group full of women who are on this path to burnout recovery and reclaiming their power. And it's an amazing group. I go in there multiple times a week to do mini live trainings. So if you want to be a part of that group, let me know and I can send you the link. It'll be in some of the emails that you get after today. I also host group programs. I have a program called Resilient Woman where I teach you ladies how to maximize your resiliency during challenges and setbacks. And then I have a program called Burnout To Breakthrough, which is my larger program where I teach you how to eliminate burnout for good so that you never have to experience it again. So I'll talk about those a little bit later, but for now, these are the ways that you can stay connected. Okay, let's dive in. All right, so first off, what is taking your focus away? So many things, I'm sure, but what are the top 2 things that are taking your focus away and that are stealing your attention? Go ahead and put that in the chat for everybody who's here live. And if you're watching this on replay, write down on a piece of paper so you can start to grow your awareness around what are the things that are happening in your life that are taking away your focus. Now, I'll give you some examples in my own life. As I mentioned, I have an 18-month-old baby daughter. She's amazing and takes away my focus sometimes. So she is an example of something that I know, as much as I love her, I need to have some boundaries when I'm working, because if I don't, then I'm going to be working way longer hours than I want to be working. Other examples can be people in the office who are coming in and out of your office every single hour. I'm curious to know if you're here live, if you're working from home or if you're working from an office. So the way that we work has changed dramatically in the last couple years, yes, and that has brought some positives, more flexibility, and it's brought some negatives. Like now your work is in your living room, and how do you disconnect from home life and work life, and everything's kind of muddled together, and that causes a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress. So I'm going to talk about that today too, but I'm curious to know for those of you who are here, who's working from home and who's working in the office. Margot, you have a daughter as well. Amazing. Yeah, they're amazing. And they can take away focus, right? Yeah, Bana. So it is definitely very common to be burning that midnight oil. She mentioned that she was up till 1 a.m. the other day working on documents. And unfortunately, that's something that I hear from a lot of women. And I've also experienced that myself, because we can't get all the work done that we want during the work hours. So then after work, we're logging back in to get more things done. So what I teach you today is going to definitely help with that. Okay, so a couple things that you have that steal your attention. And then I gave you some examples of things to look out for. So some examples of modern day things that take away your focus. Pointless meetings. Meetings that could have been emails. We live in a very heavy meeting corporate culture. Which means that sometimes you are stacked with meetings all of the time, and those meetings don't need to be done. They could have been an email. Let me know if you resonate with that. Let me know if you've ever gone to a meeting and at the end of it, you were like, that was a complete waste of my time. So that is an example of something that's taking your focus away. Hi, Larissa. So good to see you. I'm so glad that you're here. So again, ladies, put 2 things in the chat that are the biggest things that are taking your focus away. And if you're watching this on replay, write those down so that you start to grow your awareness around this. Okay, and then the second question I have for you, ladies, to start thinking about is this. How is losing focus impacting your life? How is losing focus impacting your life? So Bana already mentioned that she was up till 1 in the morning working on documents. That is an example of how it is impacting your life, right? What are some other examples of how losing focus is impacting your life? For those of you who have kiddos, how many of you have had experiences where you come home from work, your kiddos are super excited to see you, you're super excited to see your kiddos, they're telling you a story, and all of a sudden you realize that you have no idea what they said because you have been mentally going through the checklist of like, what's going to be for dinner? What am I going to make for dessert? What's going to be the bedtime routine? And like, they're looking at you like ready for you to answer the question. And like, you have no idea what just happened. How many of you can resonate with that? So this is an example of how losing focus impacts your life on a home level, right? Sometimes we disconnect from our kiddos, from our hubby, from the people around us because we've got all of this mental activity happening in our mind and we're rethinking things and we're running through checklists and running through to-dos. And like, we're not actually connecting with the people who are in front of us having conversations. So that is another example. And I'm so glad Larry said that I'm on speaker so all the ladies can hear. That's amazing. And you're working from the office. So this is going to be super helpful. So as I'm going through the slides, ladies, just start to think about these things, right? What are the things that are stealing your attention away? And how is that impacting your life? Why does it matter if your focus is lost? So stolen focus, I want to give you some statistics around where we're at right now when it comes to focus. Because one thing I know to be true from the work that I do with my ladies is that sometimes there is guilt and shame that comes along with distraction. So let me know in the chat if you've ever felt that. Have you ever felt guilty because you got distracted? You know, maybe you're at work and you're working on a project and you get distracted and you look at your phone and then 20 minutes later you realize, oh my gosh, like I was totally just looking at my phone, and then you start to go down the shame spiral and then you start to feel guilty, and like that's not helpful. Let me know if you've ever felt that way. I have definitely noticed this as a theme with a lot of the women that I work with. And so this is what I want you to know is office workers can only stay focused on one task for 3 minutes at a time. That's where we're at. That was a study that was done last year. So 3 minutes, one task. That's not a lot, right? That's not a lot of minutes. 75% of workers say that notifications are pulling their attention away at work. So whether that's Slack notifications, Google Meet notifications, Teams notifications, Gmail notifications, Instagram notifications, TikTok notifications, like all the notifications, right? And as I mentioned in the beginning of this training, the average person gets 43 notifications per day. And if you're working from your phone, it's going to be a lot more than that. Women feel required to stay on point at work and always be on and available. So that is something that we experience as women because we always feel like we have to be on point, be available. We're always a little bit like tense in a way of like, oh, I need to be doing my best. And that is some trauma that we have to unravel from our history and from what still happens in the workplace today. There is still sexism that happens in the workplace today. Some of us have experienced that, unfortunately, and that causes us to feel like we always have to be on point. We always have to be available. We always have to be one step ahead because we aren't looked at as valued. And that is a heartbreaking truth that many of us do experience. And so it's good to bring awareness around that. Women also tend to have a greater share of household responsibility, which can lead to focus fatigue. So how many of you ladies here take on a larger share of the household management? Maybe you have a larger share of the cleaning, or you're the one who's always dropping off the kiddo to work or making the lunches or scheduling the pediatrician appointments. This is something that you want to look at, right? Is there a way to distribute and delegate some of those tasks so that you can have more focus? Because the truth is that when we're doing all the things and we're overextending ourselves in that way, it can be very, very hard to stay focused. And that leads to working late hours, feeling exhausted, feeling as if you're doing everything by yourself, which leads to stress and burnout. So these are some ways that focus is impacting women specifically, and we really want to look at that, right? We want to unpack that and really question if that's happening in our life as well. Okay, I'm going to head to the chat and then we'll move on. Yeah, so some of you ladies are sharing that you have definitely felt guilty if you get distracted. And so these statistics are here for you to understand that this is not a you problem. This is a culture problem. This is something that lots of people are experiencing. And as women, we have unique things that are specific to us, and that causes a greater chance of being pulled out of our focus because we have more things to take care of most of the time. Okay. So right now, for all of you ladies who have ever felt guilty, I want you to set an intention and say in yourself, like, I'm just not going to feel guilty any longer. I'm going to practice having grace with myself and see how that works. It's going to feel way better, I promise. So the next time you get distracted, just, come back to your work, have grace with yourself, and then move on. Because the one thing I also want to share with you, which is not in the slides, but this is really important, is that when you feel shame and when you feel guilt and when you go down the negative spiral, that is a huge energy leak that will deplete you so fast. Have you ever experienced a day where you messed up at work at 8 a.m. and by 5 p.m. you're extremely exhausted because for the last 8 hours you were beating yourself up? That happens, right? And it's a huge energy leak. So plug up that energy leak by giving yourself grace. You make a mistake at work and you take care of yourself. Okay, I made a mistake. I'm human. It's okay. And then I'm moving on to the next thing. That's super powerful. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. So protecting your focus. I'm going to give you some strategies and boundaries today, ladies, that you can start to implement and write down so that moving forward into the new year, you have like the most focused year of your life. Okay. So here are some strategies that you can implement that are going to lead to more focused time for you. Number one, having office hours. This is super important. So when I was a VP in corporate, I had people asking me things all of the time. I worked from home, so I didn't have an office door, but if I did, it would have been like a revolving office door. Like literally every 5 minutes on Slack, somebody's like, hey, I need this report. I need to know the sales. Right? And like, that's impossible to focus if that's the case. So I implemented office hours. And what that meant was that I had certain hours that my team knew that they could come and ask me questions. So maybe for me, that was like, hey, everyone, on Tuesdays from 1 to 2, I've got an hour that is open and all of you can come with all the questions that you have. But if it's outside of that hour on Tuesdays, then you need to send an email or you need to wait till the next day. That's a very powerful boundary to have, and it's going to look different for everybody, and it is possible. So implement some type of office hours and then share with your team that that's what's going to be the new normal. Now, a lot of us have hesitation when we want to do things like this because we feel like, oh gosh, like, is that okay? And so I'm going to teach you something today called confidence breath, which is going to really help with that and really restore some confidence so that you can have these difficult conversations. But what I do want to tell you, and what I have seen time and time again in my own career and in all the ladies that I coach, is that when you do the scary thing and hold the work boundary, people will respect you more. That is not what we think will happen. We think we're going to hold a boundary like office hours and everybody's going to think that we're being rude or mean or like rigid or all the things that we've been called in the past. And that's not true. What actually happens is that people look at you as inspiration and then they start to hold their own boundaries, and that brings up the entire health of the team. So office hours is super important. If there's any way in your day that you can say, okay, these 2 hours are for focus time and I'm literally not going to check my email. I'm not going to check Slack. I'm not going to look at my phone. I'm not going to do anything. And then you let your boss and your team know so that they have that expectation. It's going to change the game for you in your workday. So that's the first thing. Not easy, I know, but it is simple, right? Just do the office hours. Okay, the second thing is to turn off your phone notifications. I'm going to go through an exercise with you ladies on this masterclass that's going to be incredibly helpful. But as I mentioned, you're getting around 43 notifications a day. That's multiple notifications per hour. It's impossible to stay focused when that's the case. So on my phone, I have no notifications for any of my social media, because this is the thing, ladies, and I'm going to get into this a little bit later, but when you are notified by apps, the power is then in the app's hand, right? They get to decide when they're pinging you. And that decision is made by technology that is much stronger than our human brain. The purpose of social media is to get us on as often as possible. And so if we have notifications on, we have to understand that, like, it's very hard for us to not go on when we see, like, oh, somebody pinged me. Oh, I got a like. Oh, I got a share. Oh, I got a this. And so the way that you can take the power back into your own hands is by turning off your notifications and then deciding when you want to go into social media. A lot of my clients have little blocks of time in their day that they're like, I'm going to go on social media and scroll for this hour. And that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to hang out on the couch. I'm going to catch up with my friends. I'm going to see what's going on TikTok. But if it's outside of that hour, they aren't going on social media, and it helps them so much to stay focused because they're not getting pinged outside of that time. Let me know in the chat if you are somebody who knows that social media can be distracting. If that's something that sometimes you find yourself scrolling and you're like, oh my gosh, like, how did I even get here? Sometimes it's like we have a phantom hand and we're like working on a project, and then the hand starts to like slide away, and then it logs on to Instagram, and then all of a sudden it's like 20 minutes later, it's like, what just happened? Right? So turning off your notifications is going to be a huge step forward in this regard. Another strategy that you can use is to place your phone in another room. This is also super helpful. So if you have a work project that you know is going to require some really focused time, put your phone outside of the room, especially if you work from home. You can just like put it in the kitchen, go charge it somewhere else. This is something that I would invite you to do often, because again, this piece of technology is so powerful, and most of its aim is to get us on it more and more and more and use it. Like user usage is something that these technologies optimize for. They want us to be using it more. And so we do have to take that into consideration when we think of the relationship that we have with our phone, with social media. It's totally possible to have healthy relationships with technology. It's totally possible to use technology for good. And there has to be a shift of power. Who's in control of you and your focus? Are you in control, or is your phone in control? That's an honest question that we have to start asking ourselves, right? And then another strategy is to use your breath when you feel anxious. So when you start to feel anxious at work, your nervous system is stimulated. You start to go into fight or flight mode. It's going to result in brain fog. It's going to result in lack of clarity, and it's going to result in you wanting to go on your phone because it's uncomfortable, and that's a really easy way to numb out. So I'm going to teach you a couple things today, and I'm going to specifically teach you how to use your breath when you start to feel anxious so that you can come back to center, you can come back to your power, and you can start to really think about, like, what do I want to do moving forward? What do I want to put my attention to? What do I want to work on? Because when you're in survival mode, those decisions are very hard to make, very hard. Okay. Let me know if this is resonating, ladies. Let me know if these strategies are like, yeah, I can do that. I can put my phone outside the room. I can do office hours. I can do this. Some boundaries that you can start holding today. And before I go into this, ladies, I want to say that I know that some of these things are not easy. Of course, if they were easy, everybody would be doing them and we would all be having like the best mental health at work. But that's not the case. As I mentioned in the beginning of this masterclass, we're at a point right now where about 45% of women feel burnout in their jobs. So this is becoming a requirement, is for us to do the not easy thing, for us to get uncomfortable and protect ourselves, because if not, we're going to be looking down a path of burnout, which is a very, very hard path to walk. So boundaries to hold. Stop attending meetings that are pointless. Stop attending meetings that could have been emails. Have conversations with your leadership about how important it is for you to have focused time at work. If you are somebody who is constantly added to meetings that are pointless, and like I mentioned, you leave the meeting and you're like, that was a complete waste of my time, then have a conversation with your leadership. Let them know, I really want to excel at this role. I really want to be finishing these projects in a time that's good. And I cannot do that if I'm in 5 meetings a day that I don't need to be in. That is a real conversation to have with your leadership team, and they will respect you for having that conversation. I promise you that. Okay. Don't reach. So boundary number 2 is a boundary that we have to have with ourselves. A lot of times when we think of boundaries, we think of the boundaries that we have to hold with others, but there's also boundaries that we have to hold with ourselves too. That's really important. So stop reaching for your phone when you're bored or uncomfortable. This is a hard truth, but this is definitely something that we do, right? We get bored, so we reach for the phone. We get uncomfortable, so we reach for the phone. It has become a way of numbing in to just scroll and disconnecting from the current experience that we're having that's uncomfortable. And we have to learn how to undo that habit, because that habit is causing our focus to go away. Because as you know, when you look at your phone and you come back, you have to refocus, and that takes time. Set solid expectations with your team. So as I mentioned, if you're going to have office hours, if you're going to put your phone away, you can let your team know, hey guys, I'm going to be working on a work project today. It's going to take me an hour, so I'm not going to be available from 12 to 1. I'm not going to be available from 2 to 3. If you message me in that time, I'll get back to you after. That is a huge sigh of relief when you do that. It is such a huge, it's like a nervous system hug, to be honest. Because when you hold that expectation with your team, what's going to happen is they're going to be like, okay, cool, that sounds good. And then for that hour, you're like, wow, I can actually focus on this, and I don't have to worry about all of these people coming with questions. When you don't hold the expectations with your team and they don't know, that's going to cause the opposite. That's going to cause more stimulation, more fight or flight mode, more survival mode, because even though you have this hour of time that you're intending to work, you have people coming at you, and then you're like, oh, I don't want to answer. And then it's just a downward spiral. So set the expectation. I know it's hard to do in the beginning, but it's going to change your life. I promise you that. And then we have to cancel always on culture. We just have to cancel it. So what I mean by that, always on culture, is this expectation that we're going to get back to people in seconds, in minutes. And that leads to a lot of stress. It leads to suffering. So we have to say no more. And a lot of companies are getting really good with this. I hear this from the ladies that I work with, that the companies that they're working for are becoming much more open to understanding that emails aren't going to get replied to within an hour. Text messages, Slacks, they don't need to be replied to right away. So we do have to cancel this always on culture, and we have to get right with ourselves about doing that too. Because we are programmed in a way to be always on. I'm curious if any of you ladies feel like that, if you're like, yeah, I actually am. And so what that might look like for you is you get a text message from your mom when you're at work, but you're like, oh God, I got to text her back. Or you get a text message from a friend and you're like, oh God, I got to text her back. I have to stop what I'm doing to text her back because it's rude if I don't. How many of you ladies have ever felt that way? We also have to set some expectations with others. So I have a personal story. My mom, I love her so much, and she's been a great teacher for me. And just last week, she sent me a text message. I didn't get back to her. So she's like, question mark, hello, question mark. And I had to let her know, Mom, I'm not going to reply right away. I've got an 18-month-old. I'm running a business. I'm going to reply when I can. And I need that to be a boundary. And she was like, that sounds great. And it was all good. And now I don't get the question mark text messages after 5 minutes. So we do have to cancel that culture because it is not doing us any good. Curious for the ladies who are here, how many of you feel like you have this necessity to respond to things right away? And as I mentioned, that could look like you get a text and you have to respond, or you get a Slack message from your boss and you feel like and you feel like you have to respond right away, or you get an email from a client and you feel like you have to respond. Yeah, it's definitely heavily programmed, and I do see that unraveling, and we need to unravel it within our own self first, which means we need to get right with that too, right? All right, moving on. Say no with confidence. Say no with confidence. How many of you ladies have a hard time saying no? How many of you ladies have a hard time saying no? Let me know in the chat. So This is also societal programming, and it's also something that as women, we have been programmed that it is not okay to say no. And we have to unravel that for the sake of our own mental health. And we have to know that it's completely okay to say no to the things that are not going to serve you. And so I'm going to teach you a method that you can use when you want to practice saying no. So what might this look like? Well, maybe your boss wants you to get a report in and it's 5 p.m. and you know that in order to get that in, you're going to have to work after hours, and that's not okay. So you have to say no. Maybe it looks like you being invited to something that you don't really want to go to, but you feel pressured to go to. And so there's a part of you that's just thinking like, oh, I don't want to be rude, so I'm just going to say yes. These are the instances where we really need to practice saying no for the sake of our mental health. And so I want to tell you how this relates to nervous system, because your nervous system is very important. Obviously, it's what regulates your stress. It's what regulates your happiness. It's what regulates your entire being. So if we're stressed out at work, our nervous system is overstimulated. And a lot of the things that we experience at work, like work fires, client emails, conversations with bosses, they cause a lot of stimulation in our nervous system. So when you feel overwhelmed, what is happening in your nervous system is that it has gone into fight or flight mode. So for example, you get an email from a client, and that email is not super nice. And it's going to require that you get back to them with something that's going to take a lot of time, and you weren't planning on that. So right away, you start to feel stressed out. Now, what's happening on a body level is that your body has now shifted into a fight or flight state, into the sympathetic mode of your nervous system. That leads to many things that happen in the body, like shortness of breath, tension headaches. Your heartbeat's going to go up. Let me know if you ladies have experienced this. Have you ever experienced a time where something stressful at work happened and all of a sudden your heart rate was up, you felt nauseous, you started to sweat, you had these body symptoms? Now, the reason that is happening is because when your body shifts into a fight or flight state, these things happen because your body thinks that you are in a state where you need to run away. The nervous system is something that has been with us forever. And so when we were like cave women and we saw a tiger and our body shifted into fight or flight, it did that to help us run from the tiger, the saber-toothed tiger. I don't know why I did this. Maybe they have horns, right? That is the intention of the nervous system. However, in our modern day, we have so many things that are stressing us out that our nervous system is just constantly stimulated. And that's leading to chronic illness, mental health issues, burnout, stress, anxiety, all the things. So we have to learn how to use our nervous system for good. And that is possible. And it requires you to get super cozy with your nervous system and understand your nervous system. So today I'm going to teach you something that's going to help with this. It's going to be the beginning steps. So your breath, ladies, is the number one thing that can shift your body from a state of stress within seconds. It is such a superpower, and it is something that I teach to everybody that I work with because it is such a superpower. So what I'm going to teach you today is called confidence breath. Okay. So what the method is that you're going to first place your body into a confident posture. This is also called power posing. How many of you ladies have heard of power posing? There's a ton of great research done around this. It's so amazing. So what I mean by that is when your body is in a confident posture, your shoulders are back, your heart is open, you're open, right? When your body is when you don't feel confident, the tendency is to close off. Your shoulders come forward, you close off your heart, you don't feel confident, you start to slouch, you hunch forward, right? But when we open things up, that is a confident posture. And that one thing changes the way that your body responds. So just from doing that one thing, your body will already start to shift into a more neutral state. When you are closed off and shoulders forward and closed and like shaking in your boots, like that's going to activate your nervous system in a way that's not helpful. So the first thing that you're going to do is put your body into a confident posture, right? So shoulders back, your heart is open. And then In this posture, you're going to take deep breaths in and out through your nose, slow exhales and slow inhales. So you're just breathing through your nose. Now, a nasal breath through your nose is incredibly calming. And what you'll find is that if you're having an anxious moment and you breathe in and out through your nose slowly, it will shift your body into a state of calm within seconds. It is so, so powerful. So somebody in the comments mentioned that her last job gave her anxiety. So every Sunday night, knowing that she had to go back into work on Monday, she would get anxiety. That's called the Sunday scaries, right? So this tool is incredibly helpful when it comes to Sunday scaries, when it comes to moments of stress, when it comes to a moment of overwhelm. I use this all of the time as a mom because, again, I've got so many things going on, and my daughter, bless her heart, is now 2 years old, and she's having some big tantrums, lots of emotions. And so me being able to hold the space for her to do so and hold the space for me to be powerful and not be like in that emotion with her, confidence breath has been a game changer for me. So this is really going to help you out, especially if you have kiddos. Okay. Any questions on this nervous system discussion? So this is such a tiny piece, but this is going to be so helpful. Again, confident posture, deep breaths in and out through your nose, and then say your no. If you know that you're going to tell your boss that you can't work late, take care of yourself first. Deep breaths in and out through your nose, confident posture, and then from that place, give your powerful no. And it's going to be received in a powerful way. If you say no, but you're like shoulders forward, closed off, shaking in your boots, and you can't even really say no, like the result of that is not going to be the result that you want. So this is a really powerful thing to do before you have that conversation. All right, let's move on. Okay, notification strategy. So now we're going to go into the fun stuff, ladies. So first I'm going to go through some stats, and then we're going to go through an exercise, okay? So the things that I want you to know. So how are your notifications hurting you? Well, as I've mentioned a few times, the average person gets notified around 43 times a day. Now, this is the crazy thing. When you look away from a task that you are on, it takes your brain 23 minutes and 15 seconds to refocus on that task, which is so, so wild. So what that means is that if you are in the middle of typing an email, that's important. Maybe it's a client email, maybe it's an email to a prospect, a client, a partner, and you get a notification on your phone and you look at that notification. Simply you looking at that and coming back, you've added 23 minutes of time for your brain to get refocused at the same level it was at when you were writing that email. That is so wild. So this is why it's so important to be in control of when we're getting pinged, right? Your nervous system gets overstimulated when you have too many notifications happening. So if you're trying to focus on an email, but you have Slack going off on your phone, you've got Instagram going off on your computer, your mom's calling you to ask you about the kids, it's going to lead to foggy focus. You're not going to be able to get refocused, and that's going to impact how you do your work, and that's going to lead to you having to catch up after hours. So what I'm teaching you today is going to make it so that you never have to feel like you have to catch up after hours, because the work that you're doing in the time that you're doing it is so focused that everything gets done. That is possible. And it is such an amazing feeling of fulfillment when that happens, which I'm so excited for all of you ladies to feel. So how can we use technology to help? In the last few years, there have been things created in our phones that will help us to be less distracted. And nobody talks about these things because, again, a lot of these devices, like they want the usage to be up, because the more that we use the device, the more that we rely on the device, the more that we're on social media, the more that they can give ads to us, the more that we'll pay. Like we have to understand the business model of many of these apps, which is that they want us to be on the app for as long as possible. And for those of you who are like, wow, she is slamming social media. I love social media. I get to connect with all of you ladies on social media. I use social media in my business every single day. And I have to have a healthy relationship with it. So I have to be in control of like, when am I going on? What is my intention? Am I getting distracted looking at other things, right? So how can we use technology to help? This is an exercise we're going to do together. So on a piece of paper, or if you're here live, you can put this in the chat. What are the hours of the day that you would like to have focus time? And think outside of the box. So I'm not just talking about work. So for example, maybe when you wake up in the morning, say you wake up at 6 a.m. And right now, what it looks like when you wake up is you wake up at 6 a.m., you grab your phone, you are on your phone at 6:05, and then you're rushing, and then you're grabbing coffee, and like you don't really have time to connect to yourself before you get connected to your device. So maybe for you, from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. would be a really amazing time to have focus time and not have your device anywhere near you. Like, how could that change the game for you? Maybe that means that you get to do some breath work or some meditation or some stretching or just like putting your hands on your heart and breathing before you go on with the day. How would that impact your day in a positive way? So for those of you who are here live, what are the hours of the day that you would like to have focus time? Now, the next question is, what hours of the day would you like to stay unplugged? Do you have any hours of your day now that you are unplugged? Or is every single hour of your day a day that you are plugged in? And again, we get to ask these questions with no judgment. This is just data. And it's good for us to know our data, right? Because if we don't know, we can't change. So all of the things that I'm asking you ladies to think about, I'm asking you to think about these things with so much love. No judgment, no shame. Those things are not allowed to the party, okay? So write these two things down, and I'm going to teach you how to use technology to facilitate some boundaries. And this is going to blow your mind. All right. So for those of you who have an iPhone, hang with me. And then if you have an Android, there's information on the next slide as well. If you have an iPhone and you are courageous, pick up your iPhone right now and go to your settings and tap on screen time. Scroll down and tap on see all activity. So screen time is a really cool area where you get to see a lot of data about the way that you use your phone. And again, as we look at this data, we get to look at it from a place of love, not from a place of judgment, not from a place of shame. None of those things are allowed to the party, okay? So just those things aren't coming into this activity. So click on see all activity and scroll down to where it says pickups. So in this slide, you can see to the right, this one that's blue, this is what it's going to look like. Now, if you want to get a really good idea of your pickups, then I would suggest going to yesterday and looking at a full day. So what information is going to be shared with you in this part of screen time is how many times you picked up your phone in a day and when is the first pickup of the day. So total transparency, the screenshot for this was on a day that I was traveling. So it's much lower than what it typically is. Typically, my pickups are much higher. It's something that I'm constantly working on. Okay, so I'm going to tell you why this is important, but for right now, just write down where you're at. And if you're courageous enough to put it in the chat, you can put it in the chat and let us know. Because again, we're doing this with no judgment, no shame. It's just data, right? So now that you know how many times you pick up your phone in a day, go down and scroll down to notifications. So on the left side of this slide, you will see a screenshot that's red. This is how many notifications I got that day. And again, this was a day of travel. So for me, these numbers are super low. Sometimes it's up to 150 notifications a day. Once you see that, write down on a piece of paper how many times you're getting notified per day. And if you're courageous, you can put it in the chat and let us know, right? Also, if you have any questions or you can't find this, put that in the chat as well. So I'm going to give you a homework assignment, and then I'm going to tell you why this is also important. So your homework assignment is to take a look at your daily averages for pickups and notifications. Understand your relationship with your phone. How many times are you picking up your phone in a day to look at it, and how many notifications are you getting? Oftentimes, these numbers have a correlation. Now, the other piece of homework that I'm going to give you is to set some boundaries with your phone. If you look at your phone and you're like, oh my gosh, I pick up my phone 150 times a day. Oh my gosh, I get 250 notifications a day, and you want that number to go down, then you can do some things to lower that number. And that's what I'm going to give you for homework. So if you look underneath in the screenshot, the red side, the left side that says notifications, you'll see that it shows me the apps that notify me the most. So for me, I have already turned off all notifications for social media. I had to put that boundary for myself because if not, I'm on it all the time. So I do not get notified on social media, which is why you don't see any of the social media apps here. But what I do get notified is for messages, so text messages. You'll see Gmail, Google Calendar, and Voxer, which is an app that I use with my clients. So if I wanted to limit the amount of notifications I was getting from my top 4 apps, I could click into that and put some parameters. I could ask messaging to never notify me. I could ask it to notify me certain parts of the day. And I could actually create parameters, which puts the power back in my hands, right? Because now I'm not getting messaged every time I get a text message, which is going to protect my focus if I'm in a work project. Now I'm only getting messages after work. And so everyone who text messaged me in the middle of my workday, I get to see all the messages at work and get back to them. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so Bana had 125 pickups and 76 notifications. Amazing. This is such good information to know. So for you, if you want to lower those numbers, now you can start to put some parameters on your phone. And the first one that I would do, ladies, is just take notifications off for social media. Because again, then you get to decide when you go onto social media. I love social media. I'm on there every single day, and the power is totally in my hands because I choose when to go on it. I'm not getting notified and pulled into it. It's a different energy, right? On one end, you decide, okay, I'm like chill right now and I don't have anything to do. I'm going to go check out what's going on with my friends on social media. Power's in my hands. The other side of that is you're in the middle of a work project and you get a ping and you get curious and you get sucked in. And then 10 minutes later, you're like scrolling. And then like, that's not the power in your hands, right? So we're shifting the power. We're not eliminating the apps. Okay, does that make sense? So again, for homework for you ladies, this is what you're going to do. Take a look at your daily averages and then put parameters on the apps that you don't want notifications from and see how it changes the game. I am so excited for you to see how this changes your relationship with your phone at work, because we are getting blown up way too much at work and we can't focus. And that leads to stress and burnout and feeling guilty and working after hours. And like none of that is worth picking up your phone and reading the text message the minute it comes through. It's just not. Okay, so if you are using an Android, similar situation, except you are going to look at a couple different things. So you're going to go to your settings, you're going to click on your notifications, and you're going to turn a slider on for notification history. So the toggle has to be on. And then when it is on, you'll see the history of your notifications. Under the history, you'll see all the notifications that you got in the 24-hour period. And then you can decide if you want to turn some of those notifications off. To check more screen time stats on an Android, you can go into settings and tap on digital well-being and parental controls. And then under that, you go to show your data. And you get to see all the things. So I have a funny story that I'm going to share, and then we're going to move on. I shared on my social media that I was going to be having this masterclass. And one of the things that I shared was that I was going to be doing this exercise. And one of my favorite clients ever reached out to me, and she was like, I am not coming because I do not want to know. Ignorance is bliss. Like, I don't want to know how many times I'm picking up my phone. I don't want to know how many notifications I get. And I'm cracking up because I work with her. I've worked with her for years, and like she has a good relationship with her phone. And this was also like so relatable. You know, I told my husband I was going to be guiding you ladies through this exercise, and he was like, do people want to know? And the thing is, yes, because we get to know this information without judgment, without guilt, right? They're just numbers. We don't have to attach any feeling to these numbers. But you can't change anything if you don't know what the numbers are. So my intention with showing you this exercise is that you can open your eyes to see how many times a day your phone is pinging you. And then you get to decide, is that what you want? Is that leading to focused time, or do you want to scale that down? And you get to play with this, right? So if you're here live, let me know if this was helpful. If you're watching this on replay, send me a DM, send me an email, send me something and let me know. Yes, that exercise was super helpful, or like, no, Cassandra, I didn't even do it because I don't want to know. Because I think this information is going to be something that changes the game for you. In fact, I know it is, because this is something I practice with my own self. All right. So wrapping up here, this is the last thing that I want to talk about. I want to talk about your nervous system again, and I want to talk about it in relationship to brain fog. So how many of you ladies have ever experienced brain fog? Put it in the chat if you have. So brain fog is like this foggy feeling that you can't really focus like on something. You feel like you're pulled all over the place. Sometimes this is called squirrel brain. So let me know if that's ever something that you have experienced here. So here's what I want you to know. Overstimulation leads to fight or flight mode. It leads to fight or flight mode. And as I mentioned before, when your body shifts into fight or flight mode, numerous things happen. Your heart rate goes up, you start to sweat, your digestion stops, your pupils dilate. So many things happen on a body level. Sympathetic mode or fight or flight mode is incredibly taxing on your body and will result in brain fog. It will. In fact, if you are chronically burnt out, it actually changes your brain. Your brain changes. The ability to stay focused decreases. Your memory gets lower. Like, these are pretty scary things. Now, the good news is that your brain is super resilient. And when you recover from burnout, all of those things will come back. Our brain can change at any age, at any time, which is really awesome because we get to repattern and rewire things that aren't serving us any longer. So if you are chronically stressed out and you're like, wow, I have brain fog, that could be why. And the good news is that you can change that. Anxiety and stress will increase when you're in fight or flight mode. So when you're in fight or flight mode for a long period of time, that will definitely increase your anxiety. It will definitely increase your stress. And so these are all just good things to know, right? So how can you use your nervous system to create calm when you feel overwhelmed? So another piece of homework I'm going to give you ladies today is to just build your awareness around when you feel stimulated. Because awareness is so important. If we are not aware of things, we cannot change them. So just start to get curious. Like, when do I get stressed out? When do I get stimulated? When is my fight or flight mode on? For some of you, it might be all the time. It might be all the time because so many of us have this nervous system now that gets stuck. We get stuck in fight or flight mode because we don't know how to downregulate. And this is the number one thing that I work with my clients so that they can really, again, reclaim their power and be in control of when their body goes into fight or flight mode and when their body goes into rest and digest mode. You do get to control that. You are that powerful. Many of us just don't know how because we were never taught. This was not taught in school. It's not talked about very often, and it's so important. So how can you use your nervous system to create calm when you feel overwhelmed? Well, one of the things that I taught you earlier, ladies, was the confidence breath. So those deep, slow breaths in and out through your nose, that's going to calm your nervous system down within seconds. Now, this is something else that you can do when you start to feel like you have so many things to do and you don't know what to do and like you're starting to get stressed out and stimulated, is to recenter yourself. So notice when you start to feel scattered and unfocused. Again, awareness, right? The number one thing is awareness. So notice when you start to feel scattered and unfocused because being scattered will result in more stress. So when you realize that you feel like you're all over the place, take a moment to pause. Do not push through. Do not push through. So many of us try to push through our stress. So many of us know that we're stressed out, but we're like, I got to get this done. I just got to push through. I just got to make it to the end of the day. No. Don't do that anymore. Instead, take a moment to pause. This is so important, and we do not give ourselves permission to take care of ourselves. We don't. We just try to push through, and it's not helping. So when you feel yourself stressed out, instead of pushing through, which is maybe what you've done like up until this moment, and you're like, whoa, yeah, I totally pushed through. Take a moment to pause and then take care of yourself in that pause. And a few different ways you can take care of yourself is by deep breath, like I taught you, by moving your body. So maybe just like shaking things out, jumping up and down, maybe putting on your favorite song and just like dancing it out. Our body's natural ability to release trauma is through shaking. And so shaking can be incredibly healing, especially if you're super stressed out, because stress is trauma. You can like put on your favorite song and shake it off. And within 5 minutes, you can feel much better because your body released a lot of that tension. But we don't do that. Many of us just stay really rigid and push through. And that creates chronic illness and all of the things that come along with burnout. So you can move your body, you can breathe deeply, you can put your hands on your heart. So for those of you who are here live right now, take your left hand and place it on your heart. Take your right hand and place it over. Take a moment to close your eyes and just feel your heartbeat. Breathe deeply in and out through your nose. So close your eyes, close your mouth, deep breaths in through your nose, deep breaths out through your nose. Slow your breath down. There is something so soothing about placing your hands on your heart, and there has been a lot of research that shows that this one thing can bring you into a place of calm and centered and grounded again within minutes. So if you're doing this with me live, keep breathing, keep your eyes closed, and just notice the shift that you experience in your body. Notice the feeling that you experience in your body. And if you're open to sharing and you're here live, let me know how it feels. Let me know if you can feel that shift. It doesn't take a lot of time. So sometimes within seconds, we can drop in. All right. So this is the thing that you're going to use moving forward. Okay. No more pushing through your stress. Take a moment to pause. Take a moment to recenter. And then decide from that centered place, how do I want to move forward? What is the thing I'm going to put my attention to? What is the thing I'm going to put my focus to? That decision, when made from a calm place, is going to support your highest self. That decision made from survival mode will not have the same result. If you are in survival mode, it is very difficult to make clear and centered decisions because your body is doing so much. It doesn't have the capacity to have that cognitive ability to do that. And maybe you've noticed that. Maybe you know that when you're stressed out, your decisions that you make aren't really supporting your highest good. Okay. So no more pushing through, ladies. Really give yourself permission to take a moment to pause. It does not have to take a long time. Okay. All right. Any questions so far? We've just got a couple more things and then we're going to wrap up. How is this landing for the ladies who are live? Is this helpful? Are you learning? Give me some feedback. Give me some wins. The one thing about doing these online presentations is like the chat is where it's at, right? It's not an in-person conversation where I can feel you and see you, but I can feel you energetically, and you can let me know how things are landing. So let me know in the chat and then we'll move on. All right. Yes. Nodding. Yes. Yes. Okay, good. Amazing. Amazing. Okay. So ladies, this presentation that you just went through is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to tuning your focus. It is just the tip of the iceberg. So I'm going to give you some things that you can also think about. And you're going to have this replay So you can take a screenshot of this. One thing I didn't mention is if you are on social media and you want to take a picture and share on your story and tag me, my Instagram name is @ThriveWithCass. If you're finding this is super helpful, it could also be helpful for some of the other ladies in your life. And like I mentioned, unfortunately, these things are not taught in school. These things are not talked about, and they are so important in healing our mental health and our nervous systems and really helping us women to reclaim our power. So it's so important. So definitely share if you feel called to share. So what to focus on next? Okay, so at the tip of the iceberg is what we just went through, which is managing your notifications, setting work boundaries, and having focus awareness. When are you focused? When are you not? Tune your awareness to that. So what to focus on next? Daily sleep hygiene. How many hours of sleep are you getting, and what is the quality of your sleep? Are you getting 7 to 8 hours, 4 to 5 hours? You know, this is important. This is foundational, which is why it's at the bottom of the iceberg, because everything stacks from there, right? So how many hours of sleep are you getting? And then what's the quality of your sleep? Are you asleep the whole time? Are you waking up in the middle of the night anxious? Are you waking up and then you can't fall back asleep, so you're doing things around the house? When I had my burnout journey, I could not sleep. I had insomnia because I was so stressed out about work. And what that looked like for me is I would fall asleep and then I would wake up every night around 2 a.m. and I would like clean the house or like do weird things because I couldn't sleep and I just like needed to do something. And that was a big part of why I had the health problems that I did, because sleep is foundational. It really is. Next from sleep, knowing your nervous system like the back of your hand. So as I've mentioned today in this training, like your nervous system and the relationship that you have with that is so important. It is so important. How well do you know your nervous system, and what is your mind-body connection? Is it connected or is it severed? So many of us are walking around with a severed mind-body connection, meaning we're like walking around from our head up, and we have no feeling of our body. Like we're not using our body in a way that supports us. In fact, our body is like most of the day in tension, in pain, stressed out. And so we kind of disconnect even more, right? These are some things to think about. Next up from that, trusting your decisions and having a strong connection to yourself. So that is required. If you want to decide where to put your attention, you have to trust that you know the best place to put it. If you don't have a lot of trust in yourself or you don't have a lot of connection to yourself, that's going to be really hard. You're going to have decision fatigue. You're going to think, well, maybe I should focus on this, but then what if I should focus on this? And then what about this? And then what about this? And then pretty soon you didn't focus on anything and you're working like overtime, late at night, midnight oil. You have to have a super, super, super connected sense of self to make these decisions. And when you do, every area of your life gets better. That is true. And then next from that, having an excess of natural energy so that you can decide what you want to direct your energy to, and then you can go do it. Because if you have no energy, maybe you make a clear decision, but then you're like, I have no energy to do that, right? So you have to have an excess of natural energy, and all of this is possible if you get out of survival mode. All of these things are not going to happen if you are in survival mode, because as I mentioned, when you're in survival mode, your body's in a state of fight or flight. There's so many things going on. It doesn't have the capacity to get good sleep. It doesn't have the capacity to trust in self. It doesn't have the capacity to have energy because everything is being consumed by this state of fight or flight. Okay. So these are some of the things that you ladies can start thinking about to get at the root of why your attention is being lost, or why distraction is something that happens, why you're facing these challenges, right? We talked about so many important things today, and it's just the tip of the iceberg. So go deep with all of this. Start to question all of these things. If you are a person who wants support in these things that I outlined as the foundational things, then this is exactly what I go through with my ladies in my group program, which is called Burnout to Breakthrough. We go through all of these things as a group. We heal as a group. They have the accountability of me as their mentor, as their teacher, and every single area of their life gets better. So if you know, like, yeah, I'm not sleeping so good, I don't know anything about my nervous system, my connection to self is like not super strong, and I have no energy, this is a really great place for you to be. This is a program that I have run numerous times, and all of the women who go through this program have amazing results. So some of the things to consider if you're thinking that you want additional support, and if you're not, that's okay too. But if you're like, yeah, I could really use that, well, this is who it's for. If you are waking up in the middle of the night stressed out about work projects, and you wake up in the morning and you're still super tired, if your work is super stressful and it's leaking into every single part of your life and you're dreading going to work the next day, like somebody mentioned, they had a job where they would literally dread going to work the next day. If you get home and you have zero energy left to decide what's for dinner, you don't have any energy to play with your kids, you're literally counting down the minutes until bedtime. When I was really burnt out, I would just like, I didn't want to be around anybody after work. I just wanted to go to sleep. So if that's like the disconnection that can be felt if you are really stressed out or in burnout. So if that's you now, and what you want is to wake up feeling refreshed, you want to feel like good in the morning, you want to feel like you've got energy in the morning, you want to learn how to connect with yourself in the morning before connecting to everything else. If you want to continue working in a position that you know is going to have stress, which, let's be honest, like what position doesn't, right? But you want to know that you've got it. No matter what comes your way, you're going to be able to take care of yourself because you know your nervous system and you know how to downregulate. That is so powerful, ladies. It instills so much confidence because when you know, no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay, you show up to work differently. When you feel like, oh gosh, like I'm going to be so stressed out today because I know a million things are coming my way, you're going to show up differently. And that's going to lead to a lot of things. It's going to lead to your career growth. It's going to lead to the amount of money you receive. It's going to lead to the amount of time that you're spending. Okay. If you show up in a way that's so confident because you know that no matter what happens, you're going to be able to take care of yourself, you're going to receive more money. Your boss is going to see that and they're going to promote you. I see this in many of my clients, and I saw it within my own self too. If you want to get home and be super excited to hang out with your family, like you're pinching yourself because you're like, wow, like I love my career, I love my family life, everything's going well, I'm taking care of myself, I've got self-care on lockdown, then this program could be incredibly helpful for you. So if you want to have a conversation around what that looks like, what you can do is book a connection call with me. So these connection calls are free. They are anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. I absolutely love having connection calls with you ladies because it's a way for us to connect. I get to actually talk to you and I get to see what's going on with you in your life. And if there's something that I can offer that can support you. Burnout to Breakthrough is one of my programs, one of my offerings, and there are others as well. So I do have different offerings to meet people where they're at. So take a moment and book a connection call if you're like, yeah, I really do want to start 2023 in a way that's more supported. I want the help to have the career growth. I want the help to learn my nervous system. I want the help to have somebody who's in my corner cheering on for me. Like that's how I can help you. One of the things that I'm super passionate about is breaking the cycle of stress and burnout. And what I mean by that is as women, many of us watched our moms stressed out. Many of them watched their moms stressed out. Many of them watched their moms stressed out. There is a lot of generational trauma that is passed down on the maternal side because of the trauma and the history that we have as women. And so if you know that you've seen your mom stressed out and your grandma stressed out and your great-grand, and like this was just something that was passed down and you don't want to pass that down any longer, That is the mission that I am on. That is the stand that I am taking for women. Because what does it look like if we continue to pass that down? I had to get really honest with myself when I had my daughter, and I had to really continue to do the work because I did see a stressed out mom. I had a lot of trauma in my childhood, and I did not want to pass that down to my daughter. And it's so easy to do so without even knowing. Our kids, they watch us. And if you don't have kids, there are little ones in your family that are in the next generation that are looking up to you as an example. So what legacy do you want to leave? That's a great question to ask. And again, no judgment, no shame. Being a cycle breaker isn't for everybody, and that's okay. It requires a lot of work. It requires a lot of strength, and it requires jumping into uncomfortable situations. And if you are a woman who wants to do all those things so that you leave a legacy of strength and power, then let's chat, because that is what I'm all about. On this slide, there are some testimonials from ladies who have done this program. So again, you can come back to this when you have the replay to check those out. And now we're wrapping up. So I want to let you know about a special that I will be offering for the ladies who are on this masterclass. So if you're here live, if you are here on replay, this is going to be a special just for you. There is going to be special pricing. There is going to be a coupon that is offered to you for the Burnout to Breakthrough program. If that is something that you are really interested, the first step is just to book a call. And then we can talk through what that looks like, and I can get to know you and I can meet you, which I love doing. There is also a fast action bonus. So I know it's the holidays. I know Christmas is around the corner. I know, because I'm a mom and I'm doing all the things too. If you book a connection call in the next 24 hours, meaning that you just schedule it, you don't have to actually have it, but you schedule the connection call. So maybe you say, okay, after the holidays, next week is looking pretty chill. I'm going to book a call with Cassandra on Thursday. If you do that in the next 24 hours, you will also receive 1 hour of free coaching with me. And I also love these calls because I get to go into something that you need support with, and I get to work through it with you. And that's going to set you up for a really good start to your year. So to recap, what you will get, especially if you're here live and you can book the call now, is one, a 30-minute to an hour connection call for free. And again, this isn't a pressured call at all. It's not a sales call. It's just an opportunity for you to learn more about me, for me to learn more about you, and then the offerings that I have and what could support you, if any. And if not, that's totally fine too. I love connecting with you ladies. And then on top of that, you'll also get an hour of free time if you book that call within the next 24 hours. And again, it can be for later. It just needs to be scheduled in the next 24 hours. Okay. All right, ladies, last slide. So I would love to hear from you. What are your main takeaways? Put it in the chat. What was the main thing that you learned today? And what are you excited to implement moving forward? How do you feel after learning some of these body-based tools that are going to help you feel focused and feel centered? Amazing. Banna's booking a call. Good. I cannot wait to meet you. I cannot wait to meet you. How do you feel, and what was your main takeaway from this call? If you watch this on replay, which many of you I know are going to be doing, message me on Instagram, reply to an email. Let me know, what was your main takeaway? What blew your mind? Did you know that you can even look at your notifications? Did you know that you could even see how many times you pick up your phone? Nobody's talking about these things. So we don't even know. Yes. Okay. One of the students learned that she needs to take her power back and she is in control. Yes, you are. I am so happy to hear that. That is an amazing takeaway. Ladies, you are so powerful. You are so powerful. And it is so hard to see that when we are stressed out. We lose sight of our power when we're in survival mode, and we start living in a way that feels powerless. You feel as if life is just dragging you around, and your schedule happens to you and you don't know how you got where you are and what's the point. And that breaks my heart because it is so far from the truth. And the thing that I want to tell all of you ladies on here, if that's how you feel, that it's okay, you can learn things to reverse that very quickly. As I mentioned, your brain can change at any time, at any age. It's called neuroplasticity. So we get to change a lot of the connections. So these things don't have to take a lot of time. You can go from a place of feeling like you're in survival mode. 6 months later, you feel like a completely different person. That is possible. That is possible. And 6 months is not a lot of time if you think about your whole life, right? So ladies, it was so good to connect with all of you today. I'm so happy to see you here. I can't wait to connect with you further on a call. Make sure that you book that so that you don't have the holidays and all the things and forget and lose your bonuses that you get for being here. I'm so appreciative that you took the time today to watch this. I know that that in itself is a huge win. And so my way of saying thank you is to offer these special coupons and special coaching sessions and things like that. I am so happy that this was so helpful, and I will see all of you ladies soon, okay? Bye-bye.